Wholesale markets offer variety from all around the world, like here in Rongy near Paris, the world's largest agricultural market. Tony Apfelbaum oversees the waste. Citrus fruits, seafood, fish, they all travel thousands of kilometers before arriving here.
Here we have 880 boxes of oranges with a net weight of 8,800 grams. At the merchant's request, I issue a permit allowing them to be destroyed. We're talking just over 8.5 tons. That's not an unusually large quantity for this wholesale market. Sometimes much larger quantities are thrown away. The oranges were too ripe already when they arrived here. We tried to sell them, but we only managed with some of them. We'll have to throw the rest away.
The amount of seafood thrown away at the wholesale market is particularly high. Mussels, crustaceans and fish that aren't sold the same day are immediately discarded, even when they're wild animals from increasingly empty oceans. Only a small percentage of the food that's sorted out is given away.
Everything you see here is destined to be thrown away. Our aid organization started on this wholesale market in 2009. Since then, we've been able to salvage 120 tons of fruit and vegetables from the bin. We just sort out what's still usable before the dealers throw the food away.
Food banks like this one help several million needy people in Europe. Nevertheless, they can't even begin to deal with the waste that comes together in wholesale markets and grocery stores.
This isn't rubbish. That's not good. This is. It's not spoiled. This is still fine too. This has come from Kenya.
10,000 kilometers just to be thrown away.
That's the world we live in. These fruit and vegetables have come from all around the world, including my home country of Cameroon. It pains me to see what gets thrown away here. I know how expensive food is in Cameroon. Cameroon exports so much fruit to Europe, and then it's not distributed fast enough, and it's simply thrown away. It's sad. Recently, a pile of bananas arrived here. My neighbors, a family of 5, can't even afford a small bag of bananas because they're so expensive. But here, it's thrown away. The waste is unbelievable.
Veronique has since been fired. It was too hard for her to stick to the instructions of her employers, the Paris Food Bank. Their understanding of what was still good and what had to be thrown away was too different. Our waste has an impact around the world, including Africa. Bananas for Europe are harvested in Veronique's home country of Cameroon.
The demands and constraints put on us get tougher every year. The size of the fruit, the length, even the number of bananas on one stalk are set. Consumers in Europe pay the price. All the fruits that don't conform to the strict norms are either given back to us or destroyed. On this plantation, we have to sort out an average of 8% of our harvest.
Then there are the losses incurred during transport. But what's even more dramatic is that farmers are having their land taken from them for the bananas that end up in our rubbish. Near the banana plantation are the papaya trees of the independent small farmers.
The banana plantations expanded more and more. The small farmers in the village only have 63 hectares left. Then the plantation took our land. I had 5 hectares. Now I just have this small plot by the lake. I'm 64. I don't have the land to feed my family. Ask my children or my wife whether we can ever afford meat. Not even once a year.
Food has become so cheap in Europe that private households don't just throw out leftovers, they also throw away fresh food. There are no exact figures for Germany. The federal government has commissioned hardly any studies. Felicitas Schneider did some research in Austria and found out that the average household throws away around 100 kilograms of edible food a year.
We've calculated from our studies that around 6 to 12% of household waste is food that is in half-used or unopened packets, and then there are 3 to 6% that come from leftovers. Households throw things away before they go bad just because they don't need them anymore. If they do need it, they just buy more. Those are the kinds of justifications we often get. Every home in Austria throws away up to 400 euros a year. That's quite a sum.
Extrapolated for Germany, that would be a sum of 20 billion euros a year. That corresponds to what the discount store Aldi turns over in Germany each year. Processed foods like bread are thrown away particularly often. Every baker is familiar with the problem, but most of them don't like talking about it.
There are bakeries that have a surplus of 20%, and I think that's too much. You're throwing a quality product away. It's also a product you've spent time and energy on, so it's painful. And from an economic point of view, it's too much too.
Und das tut eigentlich schon weh, auch betriebswirtschaftlich. Das ist eigentlich zu viel.
I know from personal experience, because we had a counter in a supermarket once, that supermarkets really want their bread shelves to be fully stocked until the evening. There are clauses in the contracts that demand the shelves be full until 6:30. And I've received angry letters with photographs as evidence, especially just before holidays, which are very hard to predict, that the bread shelf looked relatively bare too early in the day, and I was threatened with the cancellation of my contract.
In order to remain competitive, bakers always produce 10 to 20% more than customers will buy. 500,000 tons of bread are thrown away in Germany every year. That's enough to supply the whole state of Lower Saxony with its 8 million people. Around half of the old loaves are turned into animal fodder. Baker Roland Schüren has developed an unusual alternative.
Bread has almost the same calorific value as wood, so it burns very well. And in this mix we make with the wood pellets, it's excellent. We get the temperatures we need for our ovens here.
This way, at least, the bread's energy is still being used. But globally speaking, that's not a solution. While bread is being burned here, developing countries don't have affordable wheat. Most African countries have to import their wheat and pay in foreign currencies. Prices are rising because wheat is increasingly in demand around the world. Half of this demand ends up in the bin in Europe because we can afford it. But for the people of Africa, bread is so expensive that rising prices have triggered unrest.
The price explosion that occurred in the summer of 2008, the demonstrations in 40 countries with dead people on the streets, and the food unrests that toppled several governments were a wake-up call.
Das hat wachgerüttelt.
But I think there'll be another global food shock. Maybe not in the next couple of years, but there'll be one, and then it'll get tight again.
The cause of the last hunger crisis was the rapidly rising price of wheat at commodity exchanges. Such a hike in prices could soon be repeated. Speculators know that global demand is growing. Wheat is a popular gambling commodity.
If you bake bread or process wheat to feed your family and the price of wheat doubles, like it did a year or so ago, then you can be as frugal as you like. You won't be able to afford sufficient calories anymore. This happened to many millions of incredibly poor people. We help trigger these price rises. You're going to say that we can't just send our old loaves and rolls to Africa, and that's true. But we're sending them there in another form, namely as a price signal.
Brote am Abend da haben, die können wir doch nicht nach Afrika oder nach Bangladesch schicken. Natürlich nicht.
Because we throw them away, prices go up around the world.
In negativer Weise durch das Preissignal, dadurch, dass wir sie wegwerfen.
The more we throw away, the higher the prices. When we throw food away, that indirectly leads to hunger elsewhere in the world.
The amount of food thrown away in Europe and North America would suffice 3 times over to feed all of the hungry people in the world.